Hey guys, welcome back to NWCS. And with the majority of the door built, the next thing we need to do is go over to actually making the door jamb itself. And in this case, the house that I'm installing this door on actually has a brick facade on the outside. And it's a fairly old house, so there's lath walls. So I believe I'm making my door jamb 5 3/4, which is actually the thickest I can make the door jamb, because the threshold that I was able to order is only, I believe, 6 inches. So I wanted to make sure the threshold revealed past the doorway just a little bit and that the jamb fully sat on top of the door. The jamb fully sat on top of the threshold. I apologize. So with that being said, I had to dictate my thickness of my door jamb based on that. So I ended up with, I believe, 5.5 inches. And now that I have everything ripped down, I'm going to cross cut everything to the proper length. And then we're going to go over to actually relieving all the excess material so I can actually have the door stop. I'm actually, instead of gluing one on, I'm going to make it integrated into the actual solid jamb piece. Another thing I can do while making this exact same cut, I can also cut in my kerf to receive all my weather stripping. I am lucky enough that my table saw blade, being the full kerf, is the exact same width that I actually need for my weather stripping. So what I'm going to do is pretty much set up my blade to be exactly 3/4 of an inch thick, because my door jamb material is 1.5 inches, and I actually want to leave 3/4 for the door stop, 3/4 for the rest of the jamb thickness. So I want my first cut to be 3/4 of an inch deep. I also set it off of the fence to be the proper depth that I wanted. I planned this out to actually receive the full hinge, the thickness of the door, and the weather stripping. So I believe this was like 2 inches, maybe 2 1/8 is what I pulled off of the fence. And then by setting my first cut at 3/4 there, all I have to do is now turn my board on its side and set the proper depth to cut my weather stripping kerf and also to relieve the rest of this material. One thing I can say is that you definitely want to do this on test pieces before you continue on. As you see me doing right previously before I got to my actual solid pieces, throughout this whole entire build actually. You want to use test pieces and have offcuts as you go throughout this process, just to ensure that you're not having to remake any of your parts as you go. So after doing that, I'm about to go ahead and run the rest of my pieces through at this setting to get my initial cut on it. After that, we're going to move over to actually relieving the bulk of the waste. So I'll catch back up to you guys once we get to that process. After getting my initial cut dialed in, knowing that I actually want the remaining portion of the jamb to be 3/4 of an inch, I can use the same piece of wood that I used to set up my proper depth to actually set up my last relief cut to be 3/4 of an inch exactly off of the fence. And then I can use my test piece to actually do my first pass. This should actually relieve the rest of the waste material and create an L shape or like a large rabbit. And in that rabbit area, that's going to be where I actually have my hinges and everything else placed for my door. Another thing I'm going to do is raise my blade up slightly past that, so that way I also can add the kerf that I need, so that way I can receive my weather stripping. And making sure that everything's actually 3/4 of an inch. I believe this is actually the cut that I was looking for, and you can see that snug fit for my weather stripping. Again, this is why we make test pieces, and here I'm making sure that after my weather stripping is completely compressed, I still have the room for my actual door and make sure nothing's going to bind as I install everything. So now that I have that dialed in, I'm actually going to do another test cut just to make sure everything's exactly what I'm looking for. And here we go. I believe this is the final cut and the final settings that I go with. I have my exact 3/4 of an inch. It's perfectly flush with my block. And now I can go into actually cutting the rest of my actual material. One thing that is key is that you don't want to screw up here and run the wrong side against the fence. I already have my L shape cut, on the bottom portion of this board. So if I hypothetically ran it with the other face or the other edge facing down, that cut would be completely ruined, because it wouldn't actually relieve any material and it would be a large gouge on the wrong side of the board. So before you run all these through the saw, double check your settings, double check the direction that you're feeding the boards, and make sure everything is correct before you go through cutting everything out. I believe I actually tripped a breaker. I don't remember why I stepped away right here. Probably wasn't a breaker because I actually just kicked right back on. But I'm going to finish up these cuts, and then you guys will see the completed door jamb material. The next step is to do all the half laps or rabbits that are going to be on the ends to allow me to actually assemble the full door jamb. If you guys have enjoyed this process, if you guys learned anything, please let me know down in the comments. Leave me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.